Hey there and welcome. I'm so glad you're with me today. Today we are talking about iridology, and we're going to speak about a specific kind of marking and some of the things that it can help us to understand about our client. And this is really important to remember, that just because we see a marking, it doesn't guarantee a problem, right? It gives us a deeper understanding. So just as we're starting, I would love to know, show of hands, how many of you have already studied constitutional iridology? Drop a comment in the chat box for me. Have you already studied constitutional iridology? And while we're at it, I'd love to know what your background is in holistic health. Now, that's important because for so many people, they think that iridology is you just learn one marking, it means one thing. And when you understand when you understand how the body works, you can actually go much deeper with iridology. So this is important. And I'm going to keep reiterating that you need A&P, you need an anatomy and physiology course, an actual course, to be able to do this well. And you'll see why as we go along. Okay, so thank you to those who have weighed in with me on the chat box. I'm going to tell you this up front, and some of you already know this. The more you play with me in my chat box, the more you're going to get out of me. If I think the group is sleepy, I'm going to go to sleep too. We'll wrap up early and it'll be done. So if you want to get more out of this time together, I'm encouraging you, get in there and comment and interact with me so that I know that there's a pulse happening, right? Just really important. Thank you so much to those of you who have dropped comments in the chat box. I so appreciate that. Knowing what your background is helps me to understand how deep or how surface I need to keep this. And so it looks like we're going to be fairly surface, because it doesn't look like those who have commented really have any foundation in constitutional iridology today. So as we do this, let's just sort of start moving forward. Want to introduce myself. Some of you know me, you've been with me on other mini classes. Some of you are brand new to me here. My name is Judith Cobb. I am an IPA level 3 certified instructor. There are only 8 level 3 certified instructors in the world to date. I was one of the first 3. This is the level of certification for instructing that was added 2 years ago, and I hopped on the moment I could. Now, what these badges make it look like I've only been around for 2 years. I'm here to tell you right now that we have to, as instructors and as iridologists who are certified with IPA, we have to do our upgrading every 2 years. So every 2 years, they give us new badges. And these badges tell us that we are current. I've actually been an iridologist for over 4 decades and a constitutional iridologist for 3 decades. And so there we go. Letitia is saying she can read constitution by the condition of the fibers. You may be assessing constitution differently. And so you may be picking up different things from the condition of the fibers. And so constitutional iridology is very specific as to what the word constitutional means. Okay, and so let's hop in. I am, with my iridology, I'm also a master herbalist affiliated with the Alberta Herbalist Association and a trained nutrition professional affiliated with the Canadian Association of Holistic Nutrition Professionals and CANP. Both of these nutrition organizations require proof that you have completed coursework through very specific schools in order to become a professional member. And I jumped through those hoops, and there we go. So love being associated with these 3 groups. They have lovely people in them. The purpose of this mini class, and of all of my mini classes, is first to introduce you to constitutional iridology concepts, and second, to introduce you to the dynamic iridology assessment system course, because there's a lot of iridology courses out there, all different calibers, but I assure you there is none like this one. This is what one of my recent graduates said. Now, Kimberly has a master's degree in, and I always get this wrong, she does radiology imaging for doctors. And she also has a lot of Eastern and Western philosophy training and her own alternative health clinic that she runs aside from the imaging work that she does. So after she graduated and certified through my course, she said, if you're wondering which iridology course to take, you can stop looking, you've found it. Judith Kopp is an excellent instructor with many years of experience, and she is a caring and compassionate person who is dedicated to the field of iridology and her students. I personally practice both Eastern and Western physiology medicine and was very impressed with the layout of her program. She makes it easy for her students to balance work, life, and study. We'll hear from more of my students as we go along today. And just a heads up here, our next dynamic iridology course is starting on August 24th. And we'll talk about how to enroll in that in a few minutes. If you are a health professional, that means anything that has required a college level anatomy and physiology course, and you have either proof of that course or you have licensure, for example, you're an RN or you're a chiropractor or you're an ND, for instance, or an EMT. If you've got proof of licensure, that counts for your A&P. If you are interested in learning iridology to use with your clients or your patients, depending on what your designations are, stay tuned because I'm going to give you information again on how to talk with me about the course. Today, we are going to focus our time on stress, anxiety, and depression. And it's important to remember that there is no one sign that guarantees anything. The iridology indicators teach us about predispositions and give us understandings about body physiology. So this is really important. People can still suffer with stress or anxiety or depression, even if they don't have indicators in their irides, right? A lack of indicator does not mean there will be no problems. It means there is no genetic predisposition towards that. However, again, the indicators help us to understand our clients on a deeper level, and they help us to know what questions we need to ask and how to address the situations with our clients. So are you ready to look at some eyes? If you're ready to look at some eyes, give me the word eyes in the comments box. So I love this. Sherry Sheldon says she studied advanced biology, anatomy, and physiology in college, and that absolutely counts as definitely adequate. We've got lots of you saying you want to look at eyes. Fantastic. Let's look at our first eye. Okay, so with constitutional iridology, one of the things we are looking to see is, do we see these wrinkles coming around the iris? Now, they may be very short, they may be very long. You've probably seen other posts about these kinds of things by other teachers. What have you seen these kinds of wrinkles called? What kinds of names have you seen used for these markers? Just want to find out again what your background is. Okay, so Letitia is saying nerve rings. That's a really common name. Skin ring, I think Professor Petty, you are looking at this outer edge, and that's not quite what we're looking at. We're looking at these things in here. And so we're looking at this line and this line and this line. Okay, so we've got nerve rings. Anyone else have any other names for these? My water bottle is squeaky. Apologies for that. Okay, the formal name slips me at the moment. I love that, Letitia. I have those little, I call them synaptic gaps in my brain here occasionally. So these are often called nerve rings. Sometimes they're called cramp rings. Sometimes they're called stress rings. We call them contraction furrows. Contraction furrows. All right. So when we see these, first thing we want to do here is debunk some myths. When I first learned iridology 40 years ago, I was taught that these were an indication that the person is under stress right now. I was taught we could cleanse, we could build, we could nourish this person and get rid of these lines. I was also taught that if you had 3 rings going all the way around, it meant you were either heading into a nervous breakdown or coming out of a nervous breakdown. We now know that is all false information. None of that is accurate. Okay, so if you've heard those things and if you've been thinking, ooh, this is so cool that we can see this, I need you to go cancel, and get rid of that information from your brain because it's not going to serve you well. We're going to do a little iris anatomy here. And this is the best I could do to get a side view of an iris because the next image I'm going to show you is a cross section of the iris where we've cut it right here. And we're looking at the end. So it's like the iris is like a donut and we cut the donut. And now we're going to look at the cut end of the donut. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So this is that piece of the iris. So the pupil is sitting right here. The white of the eye is back here. This is the part of the iris that faces out to the world. This is the part that holds the color. This is the back side of the iris that faces into the anterior chamber of the eye. So when we look at this, we need to understand that contraction furrows are inherent. They are genetically programmed. They teach us that our client, the person whose eyes we're looking at, has a predisposition towards living in the sympathetic nervous system mode. Do you understand sympathetic nervous system? If you know what that is, give me sympathetic, bonus points for spelling, in the comments box. Do you understand what the sympathetic nervous system is and how it operates? Sherry's got that. Good job, Sherry. Thank you for that. Okay. Many of you are saying sympathetic. Brilliant. Love it. Fantastic. This is another reason why you need your A&P. We speak a lot about sympathetic, parasympathetic, because they have a huge influence on the body, and we see indicators of predispositions for them in the irides. So when we have the sympathetic nervous system in operation, this is someone who is always ready for the fight, flight, or freeze. They're always on edge. There's a little bit of adrenaline running. You know, a pencil dropping, they go boom, their whole nervous system hops into action. They internalize their stress. There's just so much that can go on with the sympathetic nervous system. Remember, when someone is under a lot of stress, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in high gear, and that makes the pupil dilate. When the pupil dilates, the iris tissue gets compressed. I want you to think for a minute, if you have a piece of fabric and you've laid it out flat on the table and you start pushing the ends together, can you visualize that the fabric will begin to ripple? Can you visualize that? If yes, give me a yes in the comments box. Can you visualize that as you compress the fabric, it begins to ripple? Yes or no? Yes? Fantastic. So that's what happens in the eye. As the pupil dilates, the iris tissue compresses and it begins to ripple. And those ripples are what we see as contraction furrows. Let's add another layer to this. When you compress the tissue and it ripples in the same place every time, you get permacreases. And you know this, if you wear blue jeans, you know that that area just in front of the hip where your leg joins onto your torso gets permacreases. And you could iron and iron, who irons blue jeans anyways, but you could iron that till you're blue in the face and you would never get those wrinkles out. The next time you wear those jeans, you put them on, you sit down, crinkle, they'll crinkle up and that fabric will again crease in the same spot. That's exactly what happens here. The iris tissue always crinkles in the same spot, and so these are permacreases. There are a lot of different types of contraction furrows, different configurations of them, how they're sitting in the iris, where they're sitting in the eye. We don't have time to go into all of them today. What I'm going to limit the conversation to is contraction furrows suggest this person internalizes stress and burns through B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, and magnesium at record speed. What that means is when this person is under stress, they burn through those nutrients so quickly that they have to constantly be putting them in to keep the nervous system going well. Now, these contraction furrows give us more information about the person's personality. We'll touch on that a little bit today. Perhaps, the internalizing stress might be as deep as we've got time to go. We talk a lot about the personality side of contraction furrows in the dynamic iridology course. All right, so let's look at some more eyes. The next 3 photos we're going to look at are the very same person, taken the same eye, the same day, taken with a camera that was set for different shutter speeds and different light settings. Now, this is really important. When I learned iridology, they did not teach us photography. They would have showed us this photo and the next photo, and they would have said, look at the healing that's happened, look at how the pupil has corrected. That is not the case. This is purely a tech issue. Does that make sense that if you're using a camera that has very dim light, the pupil is going to be bigger because that light is so close to the eye? If we're using, right, because the pupils also get large, not just when we're under stress, but when we have dim light, the pupils get smaller under bright light. Does that make sense? Give me a makes sense in the comments box if that bit of photography training makes sense. So we're not going to use this as a before and after. I just want to show you what things look like. So this, I'm waiting for those makes senses to show up in, thank you, Leanne, appreciate that. This image, anybody else, or have I confused you? If I've lost you somewhere, let me know. This image specifically, fast shutter speed, which reduced the amount of light to hit the pupil, and dim light. Normally when we see large pupils, we think, what are you high on? Right? This was a young lady, actually my daughter, and I know she wasn't high on anything. So this was testing the camera to see how camera settings worked, right? And I do that. I run my own tests. I want to prove it to myself how this works because nobody out there is teaching this. Same eye, brighter light. Notice the difference. Now we can actually see the fiber structure. In that previous one, not only was it very dark, but we would have assessed this as an incorrect constitution. We would have assessed it incorrectly. That's a better way to say it. Here, now we can see the fiber structure. We can see hints of contraction furrows. Here's another level of photography lesson for you now. Frontal lighting, where we have both focus lights on, will fill in crevices. Now, if you're my age, you can do this as an experiment in your bathroom. Go into the bathroom, turn on the lights. You've probably got lights above your mirror. Get close to it and notice how that overhead light coming from one direction accentuates all the wrinkles. I don't do that very often. I don't want to see them all. Then leave that light on if you want, but take a flashlight and shine it directly at your face from straight on and notice how it magically makes your wrinkles disappear. If you ever want to look wrinkle-free, do yourself a little self-esteem boost, just shine that light right at your face and notice the wrinkles disappear. You look 20 years younger instantly. The same happens with our eyes. So same eye, side lighting. Let's pop back. So we don't really see contraction furrows, see some hints of them in here. When we go to side lighting, now we cast shadows. Notice how the side lighting makes contraction furrows appear. Can you see that? Give me an I see if you see that. See the difference between frontal lighting and side lighting. Okay, this is super important. I've had students in my course who have certified under other instructors. These students had purchased iridology cameras, and when we talked about contraction furrows, they said, I never see contraction furrows. None of my clients have them. When I teach them about lighting, the next email I get is, oh my goodness, all of my clients have contraction furrows. Lighting makes the difference. You have to know your equipment and know how to use it. Okay, so we want to use different lighting to see different kinds of markings. For contraction furrows, we really want side lighting to be able to see them. Now, what this tells us when we see all of these contraction furrows, and in normal room lighting, not bright camera lighting, but in normal room lighting, her pupils do tend to be a little larger. So I know she functions in the sympathetic nervous system. Add to that the contraction furrows that are so visible, even when we contract the pupil, and it tells us that she is a drama queen. A hangnail is a life-altering experience for her. She's now in her 20s. She's actually getting married this weekend, which is why our mini class is today and not tomorrow, because tomorrow we go into full mode for wedding prep. But she is a drama queen. She goes to work, she comes home. I know her first 20 minutes. If my office door is open, my office is in my home, she'll come in and she'll sit down in my office and she'll unload every little thing that got under her skin that day. And it'll take her 20 minutes. And once she's done that, she's good to go, right? When we understand contraction furrows, we understand things like what body part, not just emotionally and mentally, but what body part is likely to have more stress as well. It tells us more about things that we need to teach this person, not just the nutrients, but foods and sleep and exercise and relaxation. My experience has been when we've got contraction furrows, it increases our client's risk of overreacting to normal events of life if they are not well nourished and if they have not learned coping strategies, right? So a lot of our time, even though I'm a nutritionist and a herbalist, is actually when I'm working with these people who've got contraction furrows, spending a lot of time teaching them coping skills, teaching them ways of dealing with stress. This is a young girl. She was 4 years old when we took these photos, and you can see lots of contraction furrows, even with frontal lighting, which means if we had side lighting, we are going to see them hugely. And so with this frontal lighting, we need to consider, why would she have been under so much stress when she was gestating? She was in a rough situation. Her parents were on the verge of splitting when she was gestating. It was not a happy time. There was a lot of time when I was counseling the dad separately, I was counseling the mom separately, and they were going to a marriage counselor as well. I also had to get involved with the in-laws of the grandparents on the other side, because of how they were trying to get involved to destroy things rather than build things up. So I was negotiating and basically telling people, back off. They're going to figure this out. They're on the right path. They've just hit a rough patch. Give them some space. And they would come to me for the space, right? And so she was under a lot of stress when she was gestating. She is now 8 years old. Parents are doing great. Everything is wonderful. Really a solid relationship. They did a brilliant job of getting the self-care they needed to pull it back together. And they have also had counseling for this little girl, because they recognize that there have been rough patches since she was gestating as well. And they recognize the stress that was on her. So they have really done a remarkable job of working to support her. So what do we do with her? We make sure her nutrition is optimal. Does that mean she never gets pops? She never gets a donut from Tim Hortons or wherever? No, she's a kid. She gets treats, right? But their food is cooked from scratch. A lot of it is organic. They try to minimize chemicals because they are doing their cooking from scratch. They're not doing packaged foods. They don't order in a lot or eat out in fast food restaurants very much. So they really do work with that. They make sure they've actually, the dad used to be a chef in a restaurant, a Red Seal chef. Those hours are brutal. Like you work from noon till like 2 a.m. It's not a job for a family man. So he left that job, even though he had the university training and the papers and everything. He left that job. He's now got a job in an entirely different industry, 5 days a week, 9 till 5. so he can be home with his family. He can have his weekends with his family. He can have holidays with his family. Mom also has a job that is 9 to 5, so she can be there for her daughter. So they've really done a great job of pulling it together, which is critical for this little girl because she needs that stability. She's gonna have times when the boat gets rocked as she gets older, but she doesn't need that home boat being rocked. She needs to be internalizing the skills to deal with it. To both of her parents' credits, her mom is now a certified life coach and her dad has done the training. And so they work with her as coaches. If she's struggling with something, they talk it out, they talk about options, they ask her to come up with options, and they just help to direct, not even direct her thinking, but help her see possibilities for solving problems. So beautiful job. Again, if she was going to take supplements, I would be looking for a liquid B complex for her to take on a regular basis. And hopefully that would have some vitamin C built into it. I'd probably look for a liquid calcium magnesium. More important to get the magnesium than the calcium in this case, I believe. And we would just do a little bit of those every day to augment their already good diet. This is actually that little girl. This is her dad, and this is her mom. Notice that the dad has contraction furrows. Notice that the mom has contraction furrows. Both parents have suffered with depression at various periods in their life. That is something we watch this little girl for. Any sign of depression, we will be intervening very, very quickly, right? So important. Even with the parents, when we notice any signs of depression there, the first question is, and these, full disclosure, my son, daughter-in-law, granddaughter, so of course they're quite perfect in every way. But when they come over, it's hugs all the way around. If there's anything that gives me that grandma vibe, then I am going to be, giving them a hug and saying, hey, are you really okay? Germaine Gatana is saying calcium is bad for the whole body, especially arteries. I typically use a herbal source for the calcium as opposed to a calcium tablet or a calcium suspension. I agree, I'm not fond of calcium supplements per se, which is why I generally am using a herbal blend, right? So I'm doing a food source. This is not quite a brown eye. Letitia is saying, what about brown eyes? And she says, it's so hard to see them in dark brown eyes. No, it's actually very easy to see them, Letitia. This is not technically a dark brown eye. This is a biliary eye. This is a 2-year-old. And she's a 3rd generation client. I took care of her grandma and her mommy when her mommy was pregnant with this little girl. And I've taken care of this little girl as well. So when this little girl was 2 years old, her mom came in and said, I don't know what's going on. My sweet daughter is having these meltdowns, and if she starts a meltdown, there is no interrupting it. She will scream for 8 hours straight without a break. What am I going to do? So I looked at the eyes and I went, we've got contraction furrows. She's burning through her B vitamins and vitamin C and calcium and magnesium very, very quickly. Now, diet was good here again from scratch. Diet was too heavy in fruit, not enough protein, not enough complex carbs, right? And so we got the mom to revamp the diet, and we also got the mom to use a liquid B vitamin complex. That's all it took. That's all it took. Her mom sent me an email about a week later saying, oh my goodness, if I had known that this was actually, in this case, it was a blood sugar thing because too much fruit, not enough other food. If I'd known it was that and that it was B vitamins, I'd have changed this months ago. And so for this little girl, all we needed to do was support the B vitamins. Yeah, it's an intact home, fabulous parents, really lovely parents, very good at what they do as far as parents. And so I knew there was no issue there, but the B vitamins and the nutrition had to be altered, right? So here we have another student testimonial. This is Karen Choate. She is a CNHP, And she is also one of my certified iridology graduates. She says, Judith Cobb has been one of the teachers who's made a difference in my life. She's a born teacher, meaning she has incredible knowledge to share in her field of expertise, patience with her students, whether you are completely new to the field or a person who has taken iridology courses with other teachers, and most importantly, the passion to ensure all of her students are well-versed, comfortable with what they've learned, and are poised for success. Judith has always been generous with her time and is always willing to discuss any questions that I occasionally have had with unusual cases in my practice. I began implementing what I had learned in her course into my practice before I had even finished her classes. It has been an invaluable tool in my office. I cannot say enough about Judith and any course that she teaches. And if you are considering iridology, look no further. Lovely to hear that. Lovely. And you can read these quotes, these testimonials on the International Iridology Practitioners Association teachers page. On the instructors page, you'll see all of these testimonials. This is a young man. He was 10 years old when he came to see me for the first time. He came in, he was in grade 5 or 5th grade for those of you who are in the States. And he was being assessed by the school psychologist at the request of the teachers for ADD, ADHD. So this was going to be, the parents wanted to keep him off the drugs, right? So what do you know about ADD, ADHD? What other nutrients, macronutrients, whatever, are critical for balancing out ADHD, ADD, and the nervous system? Any ideas here? Zinc? Could be. Could be. It's not one that I've used. That doesn't mean it's not true. It's just not one I've used. Healthy fats. Healthy fats are really important here, Tracy, really important. Think of the average diet of a 10-year-old in a standard North American home. What's probably missing? Definitely the good fats. Too much sugar. Yeah, absolutely, Sherry. So not enough protein, not enough complex carbs. Too much heavy metals, quite possibly depleted in B's and D's, very likely, right? And so with this young man, we did a lot of diet cleanup, which was huge. The whole family got involved, mom, dad, sister, and this young man. And we also then, as we got the diet cleaned up, replaced the breakfast with some protein. We often had them do like eggs and whole grain pancakes with a little bit of real maple syrup instead of bought cereals or Eggos, right? Lunch was, he takes his school to lunch. We don't have lunch programs here in Calgary. And so he would have white bread, processed ham, processed cheese for the sandwich, a fruit roll-up, a drinking box, which of course is colored sugar water, and cookies in his lunch, pure carb, no nutrition in that lunch at all. Evenings are fast because the kids are in sports and the parents divide and conquer to get the kids to where they need to be. And so often drive-through or pasta. So we revamped the diet significantly, protein at every meal, way more vegetables, good whole grains, not too many, but got some in there because these kids need energy, and a little bit of fruit. Took away the drinking boxes, took away the white bread, took away the processed meat, took away anything that had a lot of refined carbs in it. That helped a lot. We added omega-3. There's your healthy fats. We also added lemon balm or chamomile. We bounced around with those as nervines to feed the nervous system. If I see indicators that suggest the liver could be out of balance, which we're not going to get into those today, I might add a liver support, right? So that could be an important thing here as well for these kids that are being evaluated for ADD, ADHD. We need to make sure that the liver is functioning because it is responsible for that phase 1, phase 2 detox. And that is how we neutralize and then eliminate things that we don't need, whether they are toxins, whether they are byproducts we've made. We've got to have phase 1, phase 2 working. So there was a period of time with this little boy where we got him, taught him how to swallow capsules, and we got him to where he could take some N-acetylcysteine. right, to help clear that backlog that I suspected was in his liver. We got him so far along. This was amazing. Shortly after I started working with him and we were starting to get great results, his mother broke her ankle and she had to have surgery, and she had to be off her ankle for 3 months, 6 weeks? It was a long time anyways. And so she was, pretty much immobilized and at home. Instead of going to work, she had to stay home. And this is before you could work from home. And so he came into her bedroom to visit her one evening, and she said, "Hey, do you want to play cards?" He said, "Sure." So they got out the old maid card game and they played old maid, and he made it through a full game. And then he said, "Mom, can we play again?" And she said, "Sure." So they played again. And at the end of that one, he said, "Mom, can we play again?" And Mom said, "Sure." And they got halfway through the third game. She said, "That's incredible. We've never gotten through a full game before." So it had such an impact on his ability to attend by addressing the fact that he has these contraction furrows, that he burns through the nerve nutrients, and that he was being malnourished by the family diet. Loved that we got him such good results. And it wasn't that hard. I mean, a healthy diet is good for the whole family, right? This is a 12-year-old boy. He was 12 when he did these. He is now 18. Very healthy, very active, very smart, top in class. Through high school, he was taking the top academic athlete awards. So his grades were like in the 90s, and a valued member on every sports team he could work into his schedule. Again, his mother is very diet conscious. Is there junk food? He's 18. Of course there is occasionally, and he's got his own money and he's got a car. Yeah, he's going to have some junk food. As a general rule, everything at home is cooked from scratch. Not necessarily organic, but it's cooked from scratch. The fridge is jammed with vegetables and fruit. And there's just good food in the house for this fellow to eat. Now that he's 18, though, he is struggling with a little bit of depression. I'm afraid COVID didn't do him any good, because that was which years? His grades 10 and 11 that were locked down at schools, made it really difficult to do the work, but he did work hard and he did well in spite of. End of grade 12, he just graduated this last June. He's not sure what he wants to do with his life. His original plan that he had when he was in grade 9, he's not happy with that one. So a little bit of depression happening there. So we work really hard to make sure he's getting his B vitamins, that he's getting his organic calcium, that he's getting his protein. Mom is really good about getting these boys their protein, that he's getting good nutrients, and that he's staying physically active, that he's not doing depression in the way where he's isolating, locking himself in a dark room with his electronic devices. His parents won't let him do that. So he's got a job. He works out at the gym with his buddies. He's very active in lots of ways and doing a good job of counteracting the depression. Here is another eye, not quite a dark brown eye, but almost. This is still a biliary eye. This is younger brother to the boy we just looked at. Again, contraction furrows, right? Pretty much the same qualities as his older brother, except this young man has chosen to be a vegetarian. When he announced many years ago that he was going to be a vegetarian, his mom said, "That's just fine, but we're going to do it right." So she did the research to make sure that he was going to get enough protein from plant sources. She is very adamant about that. She's gone vegetarian with him, and very, very, very conscientious to make sure that he's getting everything he needs, because he also is a very good student and is very active in sports, both school and community sports. He needs his protein. No signs of depression yet, and this is good. Again, mom feeds them well and makes sure they get outside with their sports, and and the family gets away camping in the summertime, and in the wintertime they usually take at least 1 week-long warm weather vacation, Cuba, Mexico, whatever, just to spend time together and to get out of the cold. So this is really excellent, the way the mom is working with the kids, even though they're actually young adults now, to feed them, to make sure they are getting what they need. Another one of my students said this. Yeah, so we're not going to get into the flattenings today, Jermaine. That's an entire lesson in the dynamic iridology program. Got a whole extra level here. Celine said this: I wanted to take a moment of your time and just put a huge thank you out there. I've been learning so much in the first few weeks. She wasn't even a graduate by this point of class. It's been a true blessing. As an educator in my field of study, I feel as though I've taken so many continued education courses, and I really appreciate your detailed course. I particularly enjoy being able to review the many videos throughout my busy work week. I've always learned best by audio, and I really feel that it's the glue in your course for me. I'm super excited to see what's in store in the coming weeks. I'm so looking forward to being able to build this amazing process into my practice. I think it'll be well received by all of my clients, young and old. Love that. Another one of my clients, when she first, I had worked with her for many years, and then she came to me after a little gap, as often happens. Notice even with frontal lighting, her contraction furrows are quite obvious. Much of her stress was coming from the doctors. She had some very ominous symptoms of multiple sclerosis. They did lots of MRIs and scans, and one doctor would say, yes, you've got MS. The next would say, no, you don't. So they couldn't get it together, even though she had all of the appropriate symptoms. So we're not going to go into all of the other markers today. But again, even just seeing this amount of contraction furrows, we want to support how her nervous system responds. We want to give her the building blocks so that her body can work appropriately, right? And so that's the good fats, that's balancing out the nutrition with the right kinds of proteins for her, some complex carbs, getting, again, good dietary fats, good supplement fats, and then choosing appropriate other nutrients and supplements for her. That could be choosing the right herbal things, choosing a good vitamin herbal blend, might be using Bach flowers or flower essences. It might be recommending other modalities, osteopathy, for instance. And so it does us good to see this kind of marking and then to have that conversation with the client to ascertain where they are and where they need to go. Now, we don't get to diagnose. I can't say you've got MS or you don't have MS. All I can say is that she internalizes her stress. When she tells me the doctors are screening for MS, that gives me more information to work with. Here is a true brown eye. So that was Letitia, who was wondering about the brown eyes. See how easy it is to see contraction furrows in a brown eye. See that, Letitia? It's right there, right? So this was a 24-year-old male, strong history of anxiety and depression, really a lousy diet. Now, he's Asian, and what I've noticed with my Asian clients as a general rule is that they keep the white rice from Asia and the sweet and sticky sauces, and to that, they add the worst of what North America has to offer. And that's exactly what he's done. Pop, candy, refined carbs, the white rice, the sticky sauces, and he internalizes his stress. With that kind of malnutrition, there's no way he's going to feel good on any level. He has a very inactive lifestyle, no physical activity whatsoever, none. Walking to the car is the heaviest activity he gets. Now, his eyes don't tell us he's under stress. He needs to tell us that. We need to talk with him and find out what's going on in his life. And then we need to have that conversation about diet and lifestyle, right? So that is the basics of what we know about contraction furrows. Again, contraction furrows are an entire module in the dynamic iridology course, where we talk about different placements, different configurations, and what we need to understand about them in order to go deep, to really do a lot for our clients. These are not going to go away. We could fast, we could cleanse, we could build, we could give him every nervine under the sun. These are always going to be there. What we want to see change is his symptoms of how he manages his stress, how often he gets into anxiety, how often he gets into depression. So that brings us to a little introduction about the dynamic iridology assessment system for health professionals. It is the only online, fully mentored course for people who've got an anatomy and physiology course already under their belt, who want to work with clients in a holistic way. If you are currently seeing clients and you're creating your programs for your clients outside of your client appointments, we're going to put an end to that, because that's what we do. That's what we put an end to with iridology. We get you to do the assessment and the client program creation in your client sessions. So important. If you want to learn more than just markers, if you want to learn how the markers work together, if you want to learn how to think through the physiology of the markers and the impact in the body, that is what this course does. We teach you the markers, then we teach you how to think through an eye and how to tie everything together. The course includes over 45 hours of live instruction on live webinars. You get access to recordings of your classes and lots of support to help you become proficient using iridology. It's especially beneficial if you've got herbology or nutrition or flower essences or things like that behind you, so that you can learn how to integrate that. Registration for the next cohort is open. It starts on August 24th. The only way to enroll in the course is by having a Zoom meeting with me. I need to make sure that everybody who enrolls, that it's a good fit, And that is because I found that if students don't have the right anatomy and physiology under the belt, they're going to drop out. It's going to be too overwhelming and they will drop out. If they don't have, if I can tell in our interview that this is not the right time, then I'm not going to invite you to enroll. If, however, you've got the A&P, if we have good chemistry on the call, if it feels to me and to you like it's going to be a good fit, I will give you the enrollment link and we will get you enrolled. Okay, so the class meets once a week for 20 weeks, about 2.25 to 2.5 hours for each class. Everything you need to complete the course itself is included in the course except for your magnifying device. And we talk about that at the beginning of class to help you know what to get. Not expensive, like $25, $30 maximum. I posted the URL to book that call in the chat box. So make a copy of that, copy and paste that. Joyce Lee is another graduate. She is a clinical aromatherapist. She said, I took an iridology course from another school a few years ago, but I was left feeling inadequately trained and with no confidence in the material or my abilities to perform an accurate assessment. Judith Cobb, on the other hand, is a wonderful instructor. She presents the material in this course in a concise, organized way. She clearly answers every question asked, no matter how trivial the student may think it is. Judith structures the classes in a way that makes them incredibly interesting. Clarification is clearly established through her instruction, discussion, and student participation. Upon completion of Judith's course, I feel very confident in my abilities and excited to offer iridology services to my clients. This course is an incredible value, highly recommended. And with that, my friends, that is the end. Thank you for your comments and interaction. Is there anything else I can help you with before we wrap up today? Take advantage of that link. If we haven't spoken yet, please, if you've got your A&P, book a call and let's chat. Let's see if this is a good time and a good fit for you, if you've got the prerequisites. If not, I'll direct you. I'll give you a link to a course that meets the A&P requirements quite nicely. If you are ready to enroll, we can certainly take care of that on the call as well. Look forward to speaking with you soon, and I hope you have a remarkable day. Bye for now.